What if we have to share our land with creatures from another dimension? How can we coexist with such entities? And how do we physically look to one another? I don't have any more answers to these questions than you do, but these are certainly things I've had to grapple with recently. Perhaps you have as well. Let's talk about some personal encounters with shadow figures and elementals today on Homespun Haints. Hello, Hainted Loves. Welcome to Homespun Haints. I'm Becky.
I'm Diana.
And it's another episode about our favorite state in the Union, Florida.
Favorite or just most haunted?
Most haunted.
Yeah, I think that's a little more fair.
Yeah, we don't have a favorite.
There's no way to choose. All the states seem to be pretty haunted, so it's basically just which one's haunted at the moment, right?
I just got back from there. I spent a wonderful trip at Universal Studios with my family. It was a trip that was booked by Lady Teal. I don't know if you knew this or not, but Lady Teal of Lady Teal's Curios, otherwise known as Katie Brittle, is, in fact, a travel agent.
Travel agent.
Yeah, she's a travel agent for Disney and Universal, and she booked this trip for us, and she did a wonderful job, and it was delightful. The only problem was we were there on the hottest day on Earth in recorded history.
Oh, God. The hottest day on Earth?
In recorded history. July 4th.
Wow. How hot was it?
How hot was it? It was 114 degrees. That was the heat index. But get this, the heat index in the shade was 104 degrees.
Well, shade doesn't actually do anything when you're east of the Mississippi because the more humidity there is, the less difference there is between a shady spot and a sunny spot.
There's a big difference in Florida.
There's a big difference over time, over like hours, like leaving your car there for an hour. But in Florida, you don't notice instantaneously. It takes a few minutes to kick in. No, in Oklahoma, it's like 25 degrees cooler in the shade. And then in California, I think it's like 125 degrees cooler in the shade or something like that. You just freeze instantaneously like you're floating out into space.
We're going to have to agree to disagree because according to the weather experts, it was a whole 10 degrees difference, but it was still 104, so it still sucked.
Once it gets up that high, you don't notice the difference, do you? You're just like, I am miserable.
Anyway, as you can imagine, I went to Florida, I got haunted.
Well, that just fits.
Now, the real story I'm going to tell y'all is what happened after we left Orlando and went and stayed with my family in Lakeland, Florida. And I have a long history from Lakeland.
Yeah, you do.
I'm going to tell you all about that after our commercial break here in a few minutes. However, I also got haunted at Universal.
Wait.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Yeah,
it wasn't even Halloween Horror Night.
I know, right? Like, how does this happen? So we stayed at the Pacific Royale, which is one of their more luxurious hotels. It's a Lowe's hotel. It's gorgeous. It is beautiful. And the reason we stayed there is because if you stay there, you get unlimited express passes to the parks, which are usually like hundreds of dollars a piece per day.
For a family of four, that's really going to pay off.
Yeah, it would be like over $1,000 a day. So
yeah,
it was cheaper just to stay in this fancy schmancy hotel.
Nice.
Katie hooked us all up with some deals and all that good stuff. You got to check it out. If you are thinking of taking your family to Universal or Disney, I'm sorry, this is a shameless plug. She is not paying me to do this. I just really appreciate all her help. California or Florida, she can help you out, and it doesn't cost anything to use her.
And if you're wondering who the heck we're talking about, if you haven't listened to her episode yet, go back to our page, homespunhates.com, and scroll down a little bit, and you should find her episode under episodes. A traveling home for wayward haunted dolls.
A traveling home for wayward haunted dolls.
Yes, and that's Katie's episode. And once you listen to that episode, we bet you're going to want to book travel with her too, because she's spooky, like you.
I haven't talked to her yet about what happened to me in the hotel, but you would think, like, there's no way this is haunted. So I don't know what this was. I don't know if this is something that came with me or if it's just Florida. And this is just a mini little bite-sized story to get you ready for what's going to come soon.
Ooh, an aperitif.
It's just like that cucumber-flavored mousse they bring you to cleanse your palate.
Cucumber mousse tastes exactly like bugs, and you won't eat bugs. Why are you eating cucumber mousse?
Have you had cucumber mousse?
Yes, it tastes like bugs.
Okay. Lavender mousse.
Oh, that sounds good.
Okay, I don't know. Something to cleanse your palate. I was just thinking, it's usually something
Put it
that
under my eyes.
you would usually put on your face. Yeah, and they make it into a mousse and cleanse your palate with it. Whatever. Anyway.
Snails.
That's complete.
Snails, like snail slime on your face.
Don't eat snails.
People eat snails and they put snail slime on their face, Becky.
I know,
That's a
but
normal behavior.
When you think about how many parasites are in snails,
I know,
I
right?
cannot believe I've ever eaten these things. I will never touch them again. They're so
full
gross.
Of parasites.
Like,
oh
if that's not
gosh.
cooked all the way, you're going to be paralyzed for the rest of your life.
I'm not letting one crawl on my face either, thank you. No.
Okay, anyway, back to Universal Studios.
So what you're saying is that Universal, they don't have snail spa makeover snacks.
I did not see that on the little pamphlet they gave
So
me.
what the hell do you do there?
I don't know. What do you do at Universal? It's awesome. Also, shameless plug. We're not getting any kind of sponsorship.
Thank you for sponsoring our next episode, Universal Studios Florida. Yeah. We look forward to talking to you.
That would be nice.
Soon.
Anyway, so first night there, we check in, we're exhausted, we have a lovely dinner, go up to the rooms, and we all pass out. We've had a long day of driving because despite the fact that we're staying in this fancy hotel, we are cheap. So we drove there. We settle in, go to sleep. And everybody's asleep but me. And I hear this weird crinkling noise coming from the entryway to the hotel room. It sounded like somebody scrunching a plastic bag, but it was very loud.
Like a cat licking a plastic bag,
Yeah, but
as
there's
they
no
do.
cats there. Yeah, it sounded like somebody stepping on like bubble wrap or a plastic bag or something like that.
Ooh.
But all of our stuff is still packed. It's not like we had plastic bags sitting around. We just came in and passed out, put on our pajamas and passed out. We did not even unpack yet. We did that the next day. So I don't know what this could be. Because, like, again, we didn't have any, like, plastic bags hanging out. That's at the end of the trip, you know, when you just get lazy and just all the shit that you bought during the trip because you forgot shit, you just keep the bags and you just throw your old shoes and wet bathing suits in it and stuff. And the bellboy comes and you've got, like, a dozen Target bags hanging off of the thing. That's at the end of the trip.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of the trip. No plastic bags.
When you can still pretend you're classy.
Right. And I hear this. I actually sat up. Because I was like, who's there? I thought somebody was in the room. And the noise went away.
And your entire family woke up when you said that, or no?
No, I hear my husband snoring. The kids are asleep. So I knew that none of it, because I thought maybe one of them was up. Because that's why I was like, who's up? Nope, they're both in bed. Husband's asleep. I'm like, okay, whatever. Typical Becky style, went back to sleep.
Yeah, typical Becky. Oh, it's haunted. A ghost. Look at
I was
that.
like, why is
I'm going to
this
go back to sleep.
fancy hotel? I was like, it's got to be something else. It was very clearly somebody stepping on a plastic bag, and it was very clearly a few feet away from me. It was not something from another room. So after I hear this weird noise, and I sat up and realized nobody was there, I went back to sleep. Well, that night, I had this weird dream that I was being attacked by somebody that looked like my husband, but I knew it wasn't my husband. Like a little doppelganger mischievous thing. It was attacking me with a knife, and I was trying to grab the knife out of its hands to keep it from attacking me.
Makes sense.
And I woke up and there were cuts all over my hands.
What? No, there weren't.
Yes, there were.
What?
Still
no.
got some of them.
No.
Like
What?
there,
No,
and
how?
there's-
What did you
I don't know. I don't.
What?
It's not like I cut myself with my fingernails because I pulled all my acrylics off and I have these like little nubs
You do.
now.
Yeah. If you could see Becky's nails, they're hideous. Absolutely hideous. Oh, God. They're terrifying stuff of nightmares.
Well, they were in my nightmares apparently.
She'd be like, do you want a hand job? And you'd say, no, thanks. That's frightening. Yes, absolutely. Welcome to the dark side. Enjoy your ugly short nails.
Thank you. So, I know I didn't cut myself with my nails.
Sorry.
So, I don't know what it was. That's my little mini story. I didn't tell my husband until after we had checked out because, again, I didn't want him to be like, oh, we gotta go change rooms.
Do you think he really would, even at this point where you've been haunted by like a million ghosts in a million hotels? Okay, like 3 or 4, but still, like, I mean, you've been to so many haunted hotels and he's been like, hey, I saw something strange and inexplicable and maybe paranormal last night. And you've been like, yeah, me too. And then I went back to sleep. And then now you still think after all this time, he's going to be like, I can't handle it. Let's switch rooms.
No, okay, so actually, I told him all this stuff on the way home. I told him this, and then the big story I'm going to tell you guys in a few minutes. He actually was really excited to hear the stories, and he had a big smile on his face. face. And I was like, why are you smiling? He's like, this is really entertaining listening to you tell these stories. And I was like,
we should start a podcast or something. What? Well, I'm glad we finally got him as a listener.
So I am about to tell y'all a story that took place after we left Orlando and we went and stayed with my aunt in Lakeland, Florida. My aunt is a very, very creative woman, and she lives in this house that they built on property that has been in my family for over 100 years. I will tell you more about that in a minute. But one thing that my aunt does is she makes soap. And this is amazing soap. It will get rid of your ant bites. It will get rid of your skeeter bites. It will get rid of grease and tar and anything on your hands. It's made with Red Devil lye. It is old-fashioned, really, really good soap. And every single one of our patrons is going to get a bar of this soap. If I have your address, that is. So,
Maggie's aunt's lye soap. This is cool. I remember you telling me about this lye soap for the first time when we were in the swimming pool in Port Orange, Florida. And how she made soap with lye and it caused permanent chemical burns or something like that. Like,
lye can,
crazy dangerous.
Yeah, she's very careful about what she does.
Smart.
She makes the soap out of lye. My son got bit by an ant the first few minutes he was there, and we immediately put a lather of this lye soap on the bite, and it went right away. It's good stuff. So if you're a patron, look out for that. That will be coming in the mail very soon if you haven't received it already. And if you're not a member of our Patreon, we are working on a goal right now to uncover the secret passage and the ghost in Diana's haunted home.
Secret passage.
And we cannot do it unless we get 100 patrons by September 1st.
Yes. So we need you.
We're halfway there. Would you like to know what is in the secret passage? Would you like that to be live streamed? Because Diana won't open it unless I fly to Tulsa. God.
You can also walk to Tulsa. I never told you had to get here.
So I'm going to fly to Tulsa to help her open this, but I can't afford to fly to Tulsa unless we have 100 patrons. We got a little over a month here, folks. Please help us out. Please help us release the ghosts in Diana's basement. If you don't join our Patreon, it will be on you.
Plus, if you're not a member of our Patreon, here's this commercial just for you. You ready to tell some ghost stories, Becky?
Yes, I am. Oh, Diana, I have a ghost story for you.
I'm looking forward to it.
I never not have a ghost story.
That's true. That's all you talk about, really.
Yeah, I know. Diana, you've heard about this house in Lakeland.
Oh, have I?
For those of you that haven't, let me give you a little backstory. Once upon a time, there was a patch of land in Florida, and some white settlers came down and said, "Oh, this looks good. Let's just stop." And those settlers were my ancestors. The actual first settlers in Lakeland. We want to make sure that we recognize that it was actually the Bago, Timucua, and Calusa Native American tribes 12,000 years ago. But then my family came in.
Oh, what, was the land really settled, or were there nomadic peoples that moved through the area?
I don't really know.
Because I wouldn't stay in Florida all year if I could help it. I mean, the nomadic lifestyle is really the way to live in Florida. That's why so many New Yorkers spend the winter there, following the ancient wisdom that Floridians have forgotten.
I don't know if they were nomadic or if they actually stayed there. It was during the Ice Age, so it may have been cooler then.
So the records are not super clear.
Right. There were some people who moved in that are not in the records. They probably weren't very rich. So if you look up a history of Lakeland, you will not see my ancestors' names there, but they were some of the folks that actually were like, "Oh, this looks like a good enough place as ever to build a log cabin." And my family just kind of stayed there for the next 200 years.
That's dedication.
Yes. My grandfather's side of the family, I'm not sure when they came to Lakeland proper, but they did purchase this piece of land in 1922, and they built a house on it. And they dug a well, and the well was powered by a windmill, which is still there. In 1969, a hurricane took out the windmill, and they put in a pump, which is still there.
Wait, you said the windmill was still there?
The windmill's still there, it just doesn't work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it just knocked out. It's kind of like missing some shutters on it, and it looks a little pathetic. I'm surprised they kept it there for last 100 years.
A scraggly decorative windmill. Who doesn't want that?
Yeah, it's covered in rust. Also on this 40 or so acres is a lot of woods, some little swampy grasslands, some chairs that my great uncle Fred dragged out there, one for him and one for the ghosts. It's where he would sit and talk to God, and they left the chairs there for him, so now his ghost can sit there too.
2 chairs for ghosts now.
Yeah, there's a bunch of sheds in the back, because my family, they're tinkerers. So every time somebody would have a project, they would build another shed, build another barn. This also happens on my dad's side of the family in Arcadia. So I don't know if this is a Florida thing or this is just a rural thing.
Rural thing.
Is it? Okay.
Oh, yeah. There's 2 kinds of people. People who want to take up a shit ton of space and people who don't care about space. It's location, location, location. People who want to take up a shit ton of space, I have to drive past them all the time here in Oklahoma. It's amazing how many trailers you can fit on a small property.
Well, this is 40 acres, so there's a lot of sheds. Again, been there decades. In fact, one shed, one of my great uncles decided he wanted to build his own airplane. This is back in the 40s or 50s.
Yep, life's pretty cheap. They just build their own airplanes and see what happens.
So he built his own airplane. Took him years. And then he had to have a place to store it. So he built a giant metal hangar to put the airplane in. So that's back there too.
Did this airplane fly?
Apparently it made it a foot off the ground once.
Well, that's better than I've done, so.
But, he's a tinkerer. So he had to keep modifying and never really did much. And then he died. So there's all this stuff in the back. And then there was the house. And that house was actually the original house that was on our website and on our stickers back in the day. The house was built in 1922. The house belonged to my great-grandma Lesnett, my great-grandpa Lesnett. And the house was haunted.
Duh. Of course it was.
So when my aunt and uncle inherited the property a few years ago, they knocked the old house down. There really wasn't much to be done with it because it was so infested with termites and rot. 100 years of sitting there in the Florida heat. So they knocked it down and they custom built a brand new house on top of it, on top of the foundation. They kept the foundation. In fact, the original cornerstone that has the date of the house, it's still there. They kept that.
Aw.
Yeah. Well, just because something's a new house doesn't mean it's not haunted.
The haunted cornerstone.
No, it's the land. We all agree it's the land. Now, my aunt has also put out some additional outbuildings. She put out her soap shed, which is where she makes her soap. And in the house, she built a sewing room, which is haunted. And maybe that's why she decided she needed a sewing shed. So she built a she shed to sew in.
She's got a haunted sewing room she can't go in, so she made another non-haunted sewing room. Wait,
I don't know. It's in a shed that is sitting on the property that a trailer had been there that great uncle Fred had been living in. So it was already wired up and everything. So she put out a shed. But then she realized if there's a rainstorm or something happening and she has to use the bathroom, it's kind of a ways to get to the house.
A rainstorm in Florida is more serious than a rainstorm wherever you live.
Yes, exactly. So she put out another little building right next to it and plumbed it. And that's her she shed shitter.
I just love that.
She calls it the triple S.
Did she carve a little triple S in the door? Like a half moon almost, except S's.
Oh, that would be cute. And I am going to get her a custom sign made that says she shed shitter for Christmas.
Aww,
if you're listening to this, Aunt Kathy, you didn't hear that.
Plug your ears.
I've told you before, Diana, that this place is haunted. The very first time we stayed there, we were all excited to be in this new house. And I knew it was a new house, which was why I was sort of weirded out that the sewing room where the kids were staying, she just put a mattress on the floor. I heard footsteps in the middle of the night and coming down the hall from there. But the kids were sound asleep. Sound asleep.
At least they weren't scared by the ghost.
They were asleep. They didn't notice.
Right.
My aunt has a computer in there, and she said once she was sitting there and she felt something slither, cold and slimy, like a tentacle, go by her foot.
You? Now, this is Florida. We're sure this was not some kind of reptile, because there could have been a tentacle going past her foot of some sort.
Her house is spotless. There's no wildlife in that house. I don't think she's even ever had a bug get in her house. Yeah, I don't know how she does it.
Yeah, that's pretty impossible in Florida. Those teeny little geckos are everywhere.
They are not in her house.
Impressive.
I've never seen a house as clean as hers.
Only ghosts, no reptiles, no insects. That's fair.
So the footsteps weirded me out, and
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that place is haunted. And I remember telling my cousins, her son and his wife, Brittany, who we've had on this show, she was on our second episode. I told them about it, and they said that when they were tearing down the house and finding old things in the house, they found unexploded bombs and grenades. Weird stuff. Yeah.
Why?
Apparently had a great uncle who was not so savory.
Yikes.
Just a lot of negative energy.
You think?
Some photos of some things I can't say on the air.
Oh, Jesus.
There was a lot of stuff there. I mean, there's a reason that my grandfather wanted to GTFO from that place.
Yeah.
He did not get along with him at all. My only memory of my great-grandmother was when I was a kid. And it's actually a really warm memory of being in that house. I just remember the blue walls. She had these turquoise blue walls everywhere. We played games. But I do remember feeling like there were more people in the house than other people were aware of. And I was very young. My great-grandmother died when I was very young. So this would have been like early 80s, this memory. Brittany also told me that when she was there once, she thinks something followed her home. And she had some issues when she got back to the house. It was there for a while, and then she cleared it. So she thought that she got rid of whatever it was. But I think she just sent it back to the house.
Back to where you came from.
Well, let me tell you what happened to me when I was there.
Please. Yes. This is all terrifying, but what's the actual ghost story?
When we got to the house that night, my aunt was in a little bit of a snit. She was just off. We also decided that my cousin's kids were going to stay the night too with my kids. And they pulled up the RV in the back so they could sleep there because the eldest daughter didn't want to sleep in the house because it's haunted.
Makes sense.
So they wanted to sleep in the RV where it wasn't haunted.
Smart kid.
But my aunt was just, like, she just was, something was bothering her. We could tell something was bothering her. And we went into the guest bedroom that she had set up for my husband and I. And this is not a large room. I mean, it's a large house, but this is just a little section of the house that she created for guests. It's like a full guest bath and a bedroom, but the bedroom itself is not that large. And she has a lot of antiques in this room, so there's not a lot of space to move around the bed. There's a narrow walkway in front of it and 2 narrow walkways on either side of the bed. Not a lot of space. This is important. A lot of antiques, though. In fact, there was a bookshelf, there was an old chair, and lining the walls were antique dolls.
Oh, boy.
I took a video of them. Yeah. Some old dolls and a mannequin. In a corner.
Why? Oh, it's a sewing room.
No, this isn't the sewing room.
No?
The sewing room's across the hall.
Oh,
It's the guest bedroom with antique dolls and a mannequin.
So in other words, there were already guests when you got there to the guest room.
Yeah, of course. And then I pulled out the SLS monitor and it was like, oh yeah. It was having a fun time with all of that.
Goodness.
So I'm like, great, this is where I'm sleeping. Well, I wanted to get a good story, so here we go. I move all of the luggage in and I go out and get a drink of water or something, and I come back in the room, and right in the walkway, like filling the walkway, is this antique desk fan from the 60s. And it's like metal, old fan. And it was like a ceramic casing and metal fan, but it's just sitting right there. And I'm like, that wasn't there before. There's no way that was there before because I walked back and forth through there to move my luggage in. Mm-hmm. It was just there. I was like, okay. And I went to my aunt and I said, did you put a fan in there? And she's like, yeah, when your brother-in-law was down here a few weeks ago, he needed some noise in that room. And I found that old thing. It was from the old house. I don't even know how old it is. It's like maybe 60 years old. Uh-oh. She's like, I just found it and I just put it in there to make some noise. And I'm like, yeah, but did you move it into the walkway? And she tried to brush it off. She was just like, oh, you know. And I was like, there's no, I mean, I'm trying to convey like how little space there is to walk here. Like that fan took up the entire space. And I know I walked through there and I didn't notice it there before. So I was like, all right. I moved it out of the way. My aunt makes dinner for the kids. She's getting dinner ready. And my son runs into the bedroom and doesn't want to eat. So I go in and follow him, and he's sitting in the armchair in front of that damn mannequin in the guest bedroom. And he doesn't want to talk. He doesn't want to eat. And I finally talk him through, and I'm like, hey, bud, let's go eat. And he's like, okay, all right. So I'm in there for maybe about 10, 15 minutes talking to him. I turn around to leave and run into that goddamn fan because it's in the walkway again.
Whoa, wait a second.
We're the only ones in the room. And I break it. Like, that's how hard I slammed into it because it was not supposed to be there.
Wow.
I broke the fan. So I just kind of like shove it all into the corner along with all the broken pieces. And I come out and I'm like, Aunt Kathy, I broke your fan. She's like, oh, that old thing. I don't even know who that belonged to. I'm like, okay. But I swear it wasn't me. I was like, something moved it. And she's like, yeah. So then I go out with my cousins. We just go to my cousin's house and we hang out for a little while and come back, go to bed. Kids are asleep in the RV. Everything's great. Fan is not moved again.
No, it's dead. You killed it.
I killed it.
Can't move anymore.
The next morning, I'm chatting with my aunt and we're just talking about this and that and the other. And she goes into the pantry to get something. And while she's in there, as casually as you might say, hey, do you like to eat eggs for breakfast? That's how casually she said this. She turns to me. She says, I have a question for you. And I said, sure. And she's like, are you hypersensitive to the dimension beyond this world?
I love your family so much. Of course she said that.
To which I responded, yeah.
Yes. Gonna follow this wherever it goes.
Yeah, exactly. And she goes, that fan didn't move on its own. Something moved it. And I'm like, yeah, I gathered. And she's like, you know how I was in a bad mood yesterday? And I said, yeah. She's like, the energy was just really off in this house. I'm really sorry about this, but it was messing with me. And I was like, oh, okay. And she says, in fact, I meant to tell you that a few weeks ago, that couch in the living room, I saw a little boy pop up from the side of it and look at me. She thought it was my cousin's son, but smaller, more like the size of my son. And she's like, I looked at it and I said, well, go on, do your thing. And it went back down and walked off. And I'm like, okay, so you see a lot of that. She's like, well, not all the time, but last night, she says, she's like, last night, I was getting the kids all bathed and getting them in bed, and I saw your son run into the bedroom. And I said, okay. And she's like, and I ran after him because I was like, no, you need to come because you're sleeping in the RV. You're not sleeping in the bedroom. And I ran in there and he wasn't in there. And I started freaking out because it's a small room. I don't know how I lost a whole child. And she's looking around and she starts freaking out. And then the other kid said, Aunt Kathy, he's behind you. And they said he never ran into that room. Oh. I was like, well, do you think it's the same thing you saw from behind the couch? She's like, hell yeah, it was exactly the same. And I was like, well, what do you think it is? Now, she thinks it's a shapeshifter from another dimension.
Fair. It's not proven to not be.
Right. My cousin, she does not see it as good. My aunt sees it as mischievous, but not bad.
Okay.
Just there. And she sees it as curious. She tells me that in the morning, and I'm like, great. Okay, cool. Well, hopefully something else will happen, because the way I'm thinking, I'm like, this still isn't quite enough of a story. Van moving on its own, doppelganger, whatever. I want more. I want more.
You're like me now. Yes, I saw a ghost. Yes, a ghost moved a fan, but it doesn't count.
That night, nothing happened. And
Darn.
Boy, was I bummed.
Yeah.
And I know. And my aunt was like, oh, I think that it's back to normal. Things have settled down. So nothing happens. I'm all bummed. Next morning, getting ready to go. We're going to drive back to Atlanta. And I am in that bedroom again, packing up a suitcase. I saw out of the corner of my eye my daughter come in and sit in that same chair that my son sat in with the fan moved. She's close to me, less than 2 feet from me. That's how close it is, the proximity, off to my side. And I'm packing up and I say, did you get your suitcase? I called her name and I said, did you get your suitcase put together? Are you all packed up? And she doesn't answer. And I'm like, damn it, she's got those earbuds in. She can't hear me. And I said it louder. Still no answer. So I turn and nobody's there.
What?
And I went out into the living room, and she's there on the couch with her earbuds in. And I said, how long have you been sitting there? She's like, I've been here all morning.
So what was next to you on the bed?
Who the fuck knows?
Oh, no. It wasn't the mannequin, was it?
No, I saw my daughter. I was so sure that she was there that I was talking to her.
So 2 doppelgangers, both of which look like your children. Why do you think they're mimicking your children, even when you're not around?
I think it's what my aunt said, that it's a shapeshifter. It's a curious shapeshifter. So Christy, one of our lovely writers, and I did a tarot pool yesterday to try and figure out more about this. The tarot cards said that it was some kind of elemental. And that seems to make sense to me. There's been a lot that has happened on that land. Good and bad, mostly bad. But now the land is being filled with love and goodness. And I think it's changing. I think whatever is there is curious about us and wants to understand us a little better. And it's showing up in a recognizable form as a way to try and blend in, maybe.
So like an elemental or a deva who's protecting the land, who sees you guys as, well, this is the best possible scenario for humans living on my land, because in the past it's been rather scary living with humans on this land, but these humans seem to be curating it well, and so I want to form a relationship or a truce or a treaty with them of some sort.
Or not even that so much. I think it's more like an observer. I get the impression it's more like an observer. It's not afraid to be seen, which may be why it's appearing in forms that we would recognize. Or maybe that's our own brains trying to interpret what we're seeing when we see it. But there's definitely something there. I don't know why it would keep moving the fan. Maybe it wanted the fan destroyed. I don't know.
Rival ghost. There was another ghost in the fan, and they were like, nah, this gotta go.
It was so busted. Like that ceramic casing, and it was just like pieces all over the floor.
Ouch. It must have hurt your shins.
Yeah, it did. That was not fun. I'm glad I have shins of steel.
Shins of steel. Nice. So your theory is the elemental. I like that theory. There's an elemental shapeshifter guarding the land who's curious about your family's change in course, if you will, from hoarding unexploded bombs to being kind, nice, intelligent, productive people. There's a definite switch in the energy there, you gotta admit.
Yeah, and I think it's causing it to be like, oh, I think it's trying to figure us out. I think it's like, I thought I understood humans, and now I don't think I do. I think that's what's going on with it.
I feel that way every day, Elemental. Every day. Oh my gosh, yes. Do you think that this is something that your aunt wants to get rid of? Or is this something that's just going to kind of move through history with the rest of the family?
She doesn't care. However, I think it may have come home with me.
Oh, wait, what? Now what? No?
So here's the rest of the story. Last night, it was early this morning, I know, because the light was coming in through the windows, and it was just after sunrise, around 7 in the morning. I looked at my watch when I woke up. I woke up for some reason, and I was like, oh, I wonder if I woke up because my husband was moving around. So I reached over to the bed to feel for him, and he was there. I didn't feel him, but I felt a warm body. Like I could physically put my hand on him. It felt like flesh. It didn't feel like wadded up pillows or anything.
Becky, these details seem extraneous. Of course your husband felt like flesh.
You'll hear why in a minute.
Okay.
So it was definitely a person, is what I'm getting at, that I felt. Or it felt just like a person.
Most men are people in their own way.
It felt like him. You know when you know somebody really well, you know what their body feels like.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
So I'm like, okay, cool. And I was kind of worried because he wasn't making any sound. Like no snoring, no nothing. So I went back to sleep.
I was really worried, so I went back to sleep, Becky.
This is 7 in the morning, right? Go back to sleep. 7:11 a.m. I wake up again, and my husband is standing beside me, fully dressed. And he woke me up making noise, putting things on. I was like, how did you get dressed so fast? And he's like, I wasn't even in here. I was upstairs working.
What?
And I'm like, wait, 11 minutes. There's no way. No. And I know I didn't read the clock wrong because the sunlight was coming in through the window. So I thought that there was somebody in bed next to me that was my husband, but it wasn't my husband.
What? What? Oh no. So you were spooning with a shape-shifting elemental
I
from
did not
Florida?
spoon with anything. It's a California king. There's a lot of room. So that was weird. And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm just going to pretend that didn't happen. And I tried to go back to sleep, but he was making too much noise, so I couldn't. So then I got up and I went into the kitchen to make myself some breakfast because I had a meeting at 9 a.m. And just like before, I saw my daughter come in out of the corner of my eye and sit at the table. And I said, "What would you like for breakfast?" And I turn around and nobody's there. She's still asleep upstairs.
Oh, dang.
So I'm like, am I going nuts? Or did this shapeshifter follow me home? I don't know. It's going to be a fun week here at the Kilimnik household as we discover what the hell is here. So I will give you updates. If there's anything else strange sleeping in my bed, I'll let you know.
Did your daughter sneak one of the antique dolls into her luggage or something like that?
God, no, she's afraid of them.
I can't blame her.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
wait. Okay, back up. Was this elemental bugging your aunt before you came over? I mean, she said the other day she saw it
Yeah.
under the couch, but
Oh,
was
yeah,
it
yeah.
like previous to that she had seen other doppelgangers or shape-shifting potentials?
She thinks that this is the same one that she's been seeing.
Okay. So you should call your aunt and ask if it's still there.
I'll just do what Brittany did and I'll banish it back.
Go home.
Saved the house.
Lots of sage. Maybe you should keep it. It sounds friendly.
No, because it's confusing the hell out of me. I don't want to have to make breakfast for something that's not there.
I already have to make breakfast for too many things that are there. There you go.
Exactly. Yeah.
Interesting. That is confusing. Has anybody else seen
No.
anything?
No, this just started today. So I'll quiz people. I'll ask them.
Okay. Yes, please do, because I'm curious if this is a thing that's just attached to you or attached to your household. Or
No, it's
maybe
supposed to be attached to my aunt's house, not me.
Yeah.
Go home. Go home. It probably won't stay long. We're pretty boring.
Aw. Well, that story was anything but boring. It seems like you keep getting haunted. Listeners, Haunted Loves, I have so many questions, but those questions are going to have to wait because this was a long story about so many various strange events and occurrences that happened on this family property in Lakeland. I'm very curious. What do you think, listeners? Was this an elemental? Was it a poltergeist? Was it a haunted fan? Was it a haunted mannequin? Was it a haunted she-shed shitter? Was it just live fumes? Why does Becky need a California king when she's only 4'14"?
My husband is 6'3", so he doesn't have to sleep diagonally, and I have to be in a little tiny corner.
Becky would fit great in a corner.
Nobody puts Becky in the corner.
I suppose so. But anyway, I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Let us know what you think on facebook.com/groups/homespunhaints, where we'll have a long and very interesting conversation about all the potential ways Becky's aunt's house is creepy, and now Becky's house is creepy. Mm-hmm. And her whole family is about to have a spooky day.
Homespun Haints is hosted by Becky Kilimnik and Diana Doty, and produced by Homespun Haints Media LLC. Editing and music by Becky Kilimnik. Show notes by Diana Doty. If you have a ghost story and you'd like to be considered as a guest for this podcast, please visit our website at homespunhaints.com/submit.